I want to answer the question on what makes a diet good. I was so confused when I first got into fitness on why some foods were considered good and then some foods were considered bad. Early on, people said that chicken, broccoli, and rice was the way, and then afterwards, people started saying only protein matters for muscle growth, and then some people started saying that carnivore is the best for your health, others said vegan, and there was just so many conflicting opinions. But over the years, I realized that whole mentality is wrong. A good diet isn't about labeling foods as good or bad, but it's about understanding what those foods actually do to your body and how they work and how your body itself works. That way you can accomplish the main goal, which is improvement in health. And so that's exactly what I'm going to explain today. I'm going to go over the key aspects of diet and nutrition that actually make a good diet. So I'm going to go over calories and macros, micronutrients, supplementation, food timing, and even sustainability. I'll go over the fundamental part of calories and macros first because you're probably very familiar with it. And so the first thing that you need to figure out is, what is your goal? Are you trying to put on weight? Then you're supposed to be increasing your calories. If you're trying to lose weight and you're trying to cut, then you want to decrease your calories. It's as simple as that. And so if you are over 20% body fat, then you probably need to lose weight, which most people are aware of. I think it's also very important to factor in your FFMI, or fat-free mass index, which is basically a measure of how much lean mass you carry relative to your height. I think this is important in deciding whether you need to cut or bulk, because your FFMI gives you a lot of context on how much muscle you actually have. And how much muscle you have is actually what affects a lot of your body's metabolism. So if your FFMI is very low and your body fat is not crazy high, like over 20%, I don't think you should be cutting more. Instead, I think you should be bulking really slow to first build a muscular base, and then it becomes way easier to lose fat in the future when you actually want to cut. Trust me, I've made this mistake when I first started. I was very underweight, but I was chubby at the same time. So I thought that I needed to, lose fat and cut, but I didn't even have enough muscle in the first place to warrant a cut because my FFMI was so low. So that's just a small tangent that I wanted to tackle first. But once you figured out your calorie goal, now you just have to figure out your macro split. I think everybody knows about protein. You see protein versions of everything. You see protein shakes, protein cookies, protein pasta, everything. There's a good reason for that. You need protein in your diet, and especially you need to increase that if you want to build muscle. But I think then people neglect a lot of the other macronutrients. So you've probably heard this, but 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. I think that's a pretty good baseline. Then get 25 to 30% of your calories from fat, and then the rest from carbs. You don't want to neglect carbs. No matter what people are telling you, they are very good for your energy, but we'll talk more about carb and protein timing later. For now, this is just the base of what your diet should be. Figure out your calorie goal and figure out, your macronutrients split. A quick side tangent on how to actually find how many calories you should be eating. So depending on your goal first, whether you want to increase your weight or decrease your weight, start tracking your calories as much as, as accurately as you can. You're not going to be perfect with this, nor are the companies who put the calorie labels, but then you're going to track your weight every single day. It does fluctuate, so look at the overall trend. If it's increasing, then you have surplus of calories. And if it's decreasing, then you have a deficit. It's really simple to do. Just make sure you aren't measuring your weight only once a week, because things do fluctuate. You want to look at the overall trend. So the next thing that I want to talk about is after you've gotten your calories and your macros sorted out, and that is your micronutrient intake. If your micronutrient intake is very poor, your body will underperform and you will notice it. Micronutrients are like the vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants that you take in through food, and they have a huge effect on everything from your metabolism to your hormones like testosterone, to your energy, to your mental focus, and this is the thing that I think most people neglect. I'm going to give you a few examples of why micronutrients are important. So for example, we've heard of magnesium, and if you don't have enough of that, it can lead to poor sleep. If you have a deficiency in zinc, that can lead to a lower testosterone, which we know has so many negative impacts, like your mood is going to be worse, your recovery is going to be worse, your muscle growth is going to be worse, your libido is going to be worse. There's just so many reasons you would want to have optimal testosterone. Another example is your B vitamins, very important for your energy production at a cellular level. Off the top of my head, choline is also really important for your mental function. You have so many of these micronutrients that do so many important things, vital things in your body. So you can't just focus on the macronutrients. You have to do the micronutrients as well. And this is why I think the people that say if it fits your macro, so only worrying about protein, carbs, and fat, why I think that is stupid is because then the mentality is that, if a donut has the same macros as a piece of fruit, we're basically saying that they are equal in, how healthy they will make you. Whereas the donut is going to spike your blood sugar, it's going to give you no micronutrients, and then the fruit has, vitamin C, it has fiber. These are things that are going to improve your digestion and your hormones and other processes in your body. And so if you're only worrying about macros, or you're following the if it fits your macros diet, then you are neglecting a huge part of what can make you healthy. To find out if you're actually hitting your micronutrients, you want to use an app called Chronometer. I suggest it over something like MyFitnessPal because it actually tracks your micronutrients for free, unlike MyFitnessPal where you'd have to pay for that feature. And so what you want to do is you want to aim to get 100%, like that would be the minimum for all the nutrients throughout your week. And so what you want to do for 1 week is input your diet, and then at the end of the week, take the average and see what are you deficient in order to help you figure out some foods that can, help with this. I put together a list of some of the most nutrient dense foods that you can add right now. So beef liver is the most nutrient dense food. It's actually so nutrient dense that you don't want to eat too much of it because it contains so much vitamin A. So what you can do is you can, cook a batch, put it in the freezer, and then eat a little bit every day. Or you can even get pills for beef liver. There's also eggs. Eggs are so good in the morning because they contain choline, they contain vitamin D, they contain healthy fats. So that's something you definitely want to put into your diet. Also fatty fish for, a lot of similar reasons, but also they contain your omega-3s. Then you have red meat, which contains a lot of zinc. Again, all these foods contain more than just what I'm saying now. It's just, what you can use to help a certain deficiency in your diet. If we move on away from the proteins, for the carbs, you have fruit like your berries and your citrus fruits because those are very high in antioxidants and vitamin C. You also have your vegetables, your root vegetables like your carrots and your sweet potato, very good for a certain type of vitamin A and very good for fiber in general. You also have your leafy greens. For other carbs, you can also do like quinoa or oats. Those also have a good amount of nutrients in them. And then you have like dairy, like milk or yogurt. You probably already know a lot of calcium in those. But again, the Chronometer app, you can click on which nutrient you are deficient in, and it will recommend some foods that would be good for you. And so this is what I think really separates a mediocre diet, where you're just worrying about macros, to an actual good diet. And I think you will genuinely feel the difference because if we look at the all the evidence, micronutrients have a huge effect on so many different aspects, and you are probably deficient in one if you are not checking it. And then once you have your diet set, you just stick with that, and those micronutrients are checked off. The thing is, your diet might not be able to cover all of your micronutrient needs. You could be gone for a week and on a vacation, and so you weren't eating as well, which is, totally fine, totally normal. Or you could have a dietary restriction. And so then what you want to do is you want to include a little bit of supplementation. Like I said, a little bit. It's called supplements because they supplement your diet. They don't replace your diet. And so I'll talk about some of the ones that I use and that you would probably want to use as well. So the first one is vitamin D. This is really good because it's hard to get enough vitamin D just through sunlight and diet, especially if you have a darker skin color. The other one is magnesium glycinate. It's hard to get enough of it through your diet, and it has a really good impact on things like your sleep. At least that's what I noticed. There's also creatine, which isn't a micronutrient you will find on like Chronometer or anything like that, but there's tons of evidence on why it's so beneficial, especially if you're going to the gym and working out. And then there's also vitamin E. I keep this on the side if something happens where like I eat very oily food, like a lot of omega-6 high food. It's just a good way to mitigate some of that damage. And you could also get a multivitamin, but the problem with a multivitamin is they give you so many of the vitamins that you don't need, and then not enough of the vitamins that you do need. So that's why I think using Chronometer paired with actual specific supplementation is way superior to using a multivitamin. The last thing that I want to talk about is food timing, because like I said at the beginning of the video, you want to figure out what each food does to your body, and that can be a little bit helpful at specific times in the day. And so this stuff won't make or break your progress because you're eating on a weekly scale or even a daily scale. But what it can do is make your diet a little bit more easier and more effective. So I'll give you a couple practical tips. The first thing is with protein, you want to make sure you are eating it across the entire day. And this is because of how protein is stored in our body. So you want to have 3 to 5 meals per day that contain high amounts of protein. Now, the next thing is regarding carbs. So a quick little side rant here. A lot of diets are bad for you if you do not work out, right? Working out and using the fuel that you are eating is oftentimes what makes a diet good. And so carbs is a really important thing. You see a lot of people demonize carbs, but if you are working out, which you should be doing if you're watching this video, carbs are really important for that. And so you want to also make sure you're programming them correctly. So one thing is for your post-workout meal, you want to make sure you have a carb source in it because you want to replenish the muscle glycogen that you have just depleted from doing a workout. Same thing with pre-workout. You might find it useful to have a fast digesting carb or even intra-workout to help increase your energy production. The reason I'm going over this food timing aspect really fast is because it's not going to make or break your diet. And in fact, I don't even follow it sometimes because one of the most important parts of your diet is its sustainability and its flexibility and how it aligns to your day-to-day life. For me personally, I can't always spend 2 hours in the kitchen making food, even though I wish, I had the, finest sourced food and I could always make it all myself so I know exactly what's in it because, I work till 9 to 10 p.m. at night and then I need to sleep as well, which is also extremely crucial, for your health. And so sometimes I need foods that are just easy to prep. For example, one thing that I use is yogurt with flavored protein. Flavored protein isn't the most micronutrient dense food, but the thing is, it helps me hit my protein goal. At the same time, it's something that's quick and easy and that I actually enjoy eating. So some of the other tips that I'll go into to help make your diet more flexible is finding alternatives on the go. You're probably going to be outside of the house most of the day, which you should be, and maybe you forgot your lunch or maybe you just didn't have time. And so I'm going to help you find some quick alternatives that are on the go. One thing is that a lot of burger places and a lot of restaurants in general will serve their protein on its own. The problem with a lot of food from fast food places is they use a lot of excess oil, like in the fries, or they use a lot of excess sauce, which just has a lot of extra sodium or oils in it that are just inflammatory for your body. And so you can actually ask for the protein on the side. So if it's a burger place, you can ask for the burger patties on the side. Just a bunch of different alternatives, and then just hold back on things like the sauces because let's just say you're going to a burrito place. For the most part, all the ingredients are pretty good. You have your vegetables, you have your protein source, you have cheese. The problem that hits a lot of people is they load up on all the sauces. So I'm not talking about salsa, but I'm talking about some of their specialty sauces that contain a lot of omega-6s, and then that is what makes a lot of the time the food taste good, but you can do easily without it if you use things like salsa instead. Other quick options are like canned fish and like sardines and salmon. They're quick. You have pre-boiled eggs. You can find them at the grocery store, like gas stations and stuff like that. Again, these are very micronutrient dense options. Obviously, not the best option. You would want to have cooked all those foods yourself, but it's all about balance, right? You got to have your backups in your back pocket. That way, if your day doesn't go as planned, you don't just start eating junk food because it's that's the stuff that's really advertised to us. If you go down, drive down a road on the billboards, you're not going to see like these healthy, alternative options. You're going to see the stuff that's the most palatable and that's often very nutrient void and high in omega-6s compared to like their omega-3 content or just very high in calories. Just giving examples. Obviously, I'm not attacking omega-6s. It's just examples of what we see outside. So you need to have a backup plan for yourself. Just to sum it up, first figure out your goal and then adjust your calories and macros for that goal. Then you want to make sure you're covering your micronutrients. You can use an app like Chronometer. Figure out roughly what a good diet looks like, something that hits the RDA of all the foods that you have and all the micronutrients that you have, and then you can kind of stick to that baseline. Then you want to use supplements wherever you have a deficiency or you want to tweak your diet a little bit. You can optionally kind of fine tune the timing. That way, you're not demonizing a certain food group. and then actually just find a diet that works for you, something that you're going to stick with. Some people have, higher hunger signaling, so they might want more palatable foods versus some people don't really care what they eat. They just want to, figure out what's optimal. So figure out what works for you and that you're actually going to stick with. Other than that, thanks for watching the video. I'll see you guys in another one.